Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Torey and today we are working in my December daily album on story number 18. So for my video today, I am primarily going to be focusing on creating a large envelope type pocket. I received some Christmas cards this year, most of them just like from people that I work with, but I did receive 2 Christmas cards in the mail from friends. So I wanted to have a place to store those Christmas cards, and I decided that I would use this large patterned paper from the add-on patterned paper pack from Ali Edwards this year to create a large pocket to store the cards in. So there's going to be a lot of kind of maneuvering the paper and flipping and kind of making sure everything is working the way that I'm thinking it will work before I'm adhering things down. I did end up cutting my patterned paper to be a little bit longer than 7 inches. I think it ended up being around 7¼ inches because I wanted there to be enough room to fit a very large card that I received. And yeah, you'll see me break that card out a little bit later just to kind of use that to measure and make sure it would fit inside the envelope that I was creating. So the first thing that I'm going to do before I start assembling this envelope is punch my holes, because I'm planning to use a little bit of foam tape to create a little bit of depth in my pocket. Before I do that foam tape portion of it, I am going to kind of rust this inside my album to make sure I didn't cut it too big. You can see that the red pattern paper kind of goes right to the edge of my album. It's just shy of the edge, but the white paper that I cut is a little bit too long, so I'm going to trim that back down so that it's the same size as the red paper. I've got my paper trimmed out for the most part so far, so I'm going to move on to working on my hinge. I just have a scrap piece of just regular, I think, cardstock that I'm going to use to hinge these 2 pieces of paper together and create my flap. I'm just going to trim this down enough to fit on my scoreboard. That way I don't have to flip it a ton to get everything like perfectly scored. And then I will work on getting it adhered to the back of my envelope. Once I've got that adhered to the back of my envelope, I will then add my foam adhesive. And the brand that I'll be using for my foam adhesive for this particular spread is going to be the 3M foam adhesive. It's fairly thin and they sell this one at Target, so it's really like accessible, especially if I don't have time to wait for something to come in the mail. I can just run to Target and get it, and I like it more than the foam adhesives that they sell at Michael's. So this is one that I just picked up at Target that I wanted to have on hand in case I needed it, and I like how thin it is. Unfortunately, the Target that I purchased this from only has this, I think it's about 1/2 inch, and I did not want to take up more than 1/4 inch of space for the adhesive, so I'm trimming it in half. I'm also placing a little bit of that adhesive in between each of my holes as well, so that I don't have any like dipping in those areas, and just continuing to cut them in pieces that are small enough that I can manageably cut it in half to make it about 1/4 inch, but also not so small that it takes me ages and ages to get everything applied here. So this was a little bit of a tedious task, but it was worth it because I really like this adhesive and it works super well and it's super easy to get the backing off of. So I was fine with working with it to get it to do what I wanted. I also pulled out a 1-inch a 1-inch circle punch just to create a little notch in order to pull my cards in and out. And then I'm going to trim this paper down just a little bit more because I felt like I wanted it to be a little bit smaller than my back portion of the envelope to kind of make it a little bit easier for me to get things in and out of the envelope. I'm not sure if this honestly makes any sort of difference or if it's just like the visual aspect of it that I really wanted to work out for me. I don't know. It might not make any difference at all what I'm doing right now, but that's besides the point because I already did it. So I just trimmed off a little bit of the pattern paper and then I will pull out my card and make sure that that fits. And then I'm going to kind of dry lay everything out once more and see if I'm liking how it will lay together. And I do like that. So I'm going to pull off all of the backing of all of these individual pieces of foam adhesive that I've got on my patterned paper. And I will pull out my large MISTI and pull out the foam and all of the pieces of paper and stuff that are on the inside of that. And I'm going to use the corner of my MISTI to kind of lay this down. I don't have a lot of like leeway. I just needed this to be lined up really well since I already punched all of my holes and I have all of this foam adhesive. And if I have to take this apart, like I have to restart. Like I didn't really want to deal with all that. So having a sharp corner that's deep enough to actually fit that foam adhesive on worked out really well for me getting everything lined up exactly as I needed it to be lined up. And that's honestly one of my favorite things to use my MISTIs for is those like 90-degree angles and getting things lined up. So here I'm just kind of placing all of the cards that I had to see how much bulk it would add to that envelope. It does push the center up just a bit, but not so much that I would not be willing to put cards in here, if that makes sense. I had also pulled out a little bit of additional patterned paper to place on the inside of my envelope flip. So that is just like, I think the asterisk or star looking paper from that same pattern paper pack. And then I have this little die cut circle, which I'm not sure where this is from. I don't know that this is even an Allie Edwards one. I think this was just in my stash. And I'm going to use that as kind of like a small decorative element to have on the front of my envelope. Seeing where I placed that circle, I am going to need to cut down my envelope flip just a little bit because I don't want to cover that circle up. And I think I ended up trimming that to 2 3/4 of an inch. Really, I just need the envelope flip to kind of cover the actual opening of my envelope. So I was fine cutting that down a little bit to make sure that everything fit. One thing that I did do when I was getting ready to adhere this to my hinge is I actually placed it on my envelope directly where I wanted it to lay and lined it up with my patterned paper. That way, whenever I close this, it should line up perfectly. I have had instances in the past where I make a hinge and adhere everything just visually how I think it should line up, and then I go to close it and it doesn't line up the way that I wanted it to. So I really liked trying this way out. I think it worked really, really well for this particular envelope and definitely was lined up exactly the way I wanted it to be. I'm going to use my little Velcro dots to hold this envelope shut. You saw my envelope was quite bulky when I added those cards into it, so I wanted to have something to keep this shut and adhered together once I have items actually in this envelope. I am also pulling out some of my tabs from Ali Edwards to see what I wanted to use as like a tab for this flip opening of the envelope. And let's see, which one did I pick? And I just picked the tab that says fa la la. I thought that was super cute. And there is a fa la la scripty word on the pattern paper. So I think it fits really, really well. So this is what the envelope looks like all set up. I'm just adding in a couple of the cards that I received. In this particular portion of it, I didn't add all of them back in. But I just wanted to add a couple in just to make sure everything was still fitting correctly. And then I pulled out these numbers from the Me, Myself, and I kit from 2023 from Studio Calico. I really liked the 18 on here and the shade of green that it was. So I'm just going to pull that out and use that as my story number for this spread. I'm not sure what happened with this number, but like the adhesive portion of it was halfway ripped off. So I just tore that off completely and pulled out my 1/8" score tape and just added new adhesive to the back of this. It also works out a little bit because since I ended up taking off some of the cardboard off the back of this chipboard piece, it does make that chipboard number just a little bit thinner anyways, which, as we already have discussed, my album is already getting quite chunky, so that will just also help reduce some of the chunk of my album. And that is going to be all I have for this spread. I'm going to go ahead and get this added back into my album. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye!